The following discussion is not necessarily the views of all involved. The goal is to start open and honest discussion in the Christian worldview. Like all things, weigh what you hear with what you know and join us in our pursuit for the truth. Enjoy the podcast.
Here's ASMR Bible flipping here. Oh, forgive me.
You weren't paying attention.
I'm sorry. All sinners do deserve their death.
Okay, well, wild thing to say. Okay, I already agree with Josh. We just made the argument from different sides.
All right, welcome to Second Rate Saints Podcast. I'm one of your hosts here, Caleb. To my left is...
My name is Joshua. To my left is...
I'm Joel, and to my left...
I'm Colton, and to my left...
It's me, Caleb. We've gone full circle. Sadly, as per the norm, Stuart, you are dearly missed. We will have you on shortly. I hope so.
Eventually.
We pray. Joel.
Yeah.
Does Second Rate Saints do stuff on the internet?
Well, go to secondRateSaints.com to see everything that we're doing online. If you'd like to follow our updates and our our news that's going to be coming out soon, follow us on Instagram and Twitter. We've got a lot of interesting stuff in the mix. If you'd like to be part of it financially, go to our Buy Me a Coffee link at buymeacoffee.com/secondRateSaints or find the link on our website. Yeah, I think that's everything.
Well, to your point, like if fans want to give us money through that,
Yeah, fair.
that means that the equipment in the podcast gets better and the podcast gets better.
Right.
So if you don't like how this sounds, give us money.
Okay.
That sounds terrible, but I just think that's a funny thought.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been super cool to hear from people who are interested in the future of the podcast. So, Caleb, what have you read? What's your book? What's your poison of the week?
What did I bring?
What is it written by a heretic?
It depends how you look at it.
It depends on who you are.
He is, if anyone's Catholic, it would be the Pope.
But we're all Catholic.
Normally. The small c. We'll
Everyone's
get into
Catholic
that.
by birth.
So I have read, sadly, I am almost done. I didn't complete it in time
Like
for the
4
episode,
pages.
but I'm still going to, I'm still going to talk about it because it has been great. And I don't think it's going to change much in that short period. Pope John Paul II's Theology of the Body. It's just under 200 pages. It's very approachable, very simple language. For me, I would actually like to read this again immediately after finishing it so that I can write a blog article on our website about it. So far, and I think it'll continue to be this way, I would put it up there with its impact in the way I've thought right now with Mere Christianity, Confessions of St. Augustine.
Really?
Yeah. The two books that I think every Christian should read, if anyone asks me ever for a book recommendation, it has always been Confession of St. Augustine and Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. And more recently now, Pope John Paul II's Theology of the Body. So reason being, obviously it's written, not the current Pope, I think it's 2 popes back.
Was this the one that was deposed?
No.
I say deposed, step down.
That was Benedict.
That was Benedict.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this one it was in the 70s. So he's writing it during like the rise of, the sexual revolution and all that kind of stuff, right? And so rather than I don't know, I picked up books about, what is the Christian view of the body? What is the Christian view of marriage? What is the Christian view of sex? What is the Christian view of all that kind of stuff? And everybody's making heavily cultural contextualized arguments to combat where we're at now, all this kind of stuff. And those are good and have their place.
Mm-hmm.
What I like about this, about the Theology of the Body, is he presents with elegant simplicity, yet extreme depth. I think, my belief is the biblical articulation of, let's just take a step back. Let's go right back to the biblical text. Just how should we be thinking about these things? How should femininity and masculinity, how should we articulate those things in correlation to one another in marriage? And how does that play into the concept of how marriage plays out in the procreation of children. Why is marriage the image used between God and the Israelites in the many latter parts of the Old Testament? Why is that the image that's used for God and his church, right? In the New. And so rather than just going out there swinging haymakers on, hey, the culture's wrong here, the sin is why it does, and it's building up, I think, it builds up the beautiful structure of, hey, this is how things ought to be. This is the healthy way to look at this stuff. And then every now and then he kind of just turns and goes, and you can obviously see how culture, when he's writing in the 70s, is fundamentally rejecting this. And that's horribly sad. And then he goes back to trying to further flesh out the beautiful biblical articulation of femininity, masculinity, how that plays out in marriage, how children play into that, how the image of God plays into those things. It's under 200 pages in simple English. It's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So I don't know much about Pope Jean Paul, but was he married? No. Okay,
No.
interesting. So that's another.
He was one of the first. He was one of the first non-Latin popes in like hundreds of years, if my memory's right. Non-Italian, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah, coming right out of World War II, that kind of stuff. It's worth reading. To me, it's that market in the Christian book sphere is super saturated, and there's so many voices, and it's like a breath of fresh air.
Okay.
Yeah.
Caleb, is like, I'm not Roman Catholic.
No.
If I read it, what am I going to get out of it? Am I going to get what it's intended, or am I going to reject some parts of it because of
I don't
Roman
think you're going to
Catholicism?
reject parts of it because of Catholicism. I think you'll just disagree on interpretation of certain things.
All
here and
right.
there.
Yeah, that's
There's
fair.
very little. At the end there's a little bit of how he looks at celibacy
Okay.
that I think some people might go, he's wrong. I'm more sympathetic towards it. But whatever. But it's not like he leans on the magisterium. He doesn't lean on even the church fathers necessarily. It's very biblical. And it's, I have not come across parts where it's like that appeal fundamentally could not be held by a Protestant. At least definitely in the first half, there's not even a shred, I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Important question. Josh, cover out of 5.
0.
Really?
It is so bad.
We have had worse covers on this podcast.
Caleb, I'm also gonna go with a 1.
That's
Zero's unfair.
Zero.
Zero's
It's
unfair. It's
so
not the
bad.
worst.
Do you know if that is the original?
It's not.
Okay.
This
It
is an
doesn't
Amazon
look like it
reprint.
is.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it has
Okay.
2 hands on it.
That was the vibe that I had.
This is an Amazon reprint.
It's it does absolutely nothing. It hurts me.
You can't see colors,
So
so you're probably
my-
just getting it wrong.
My thing is, if it's the theology of the body, what's being communicated by just 2 hands?
The
in
main
front?
femininity and masculinity, the interplay between the two.
Okay.
That's where
yeah.
what he would articulate is the main meaning in what the human body
Right.
and how it plays out in its relationship to the created order, in relationship to one another and to God, is best seen in the theology presented in the Bible in the interplay between the sexes.
It's very rare that you would suggest a book like you've put 4.5s and stuff out of 5 and stuff because you're like, they're a good book, but I wouldn't suggest it to everyone. If this is a book that's up there with that, after this podcast, I'm going to ask you a few more questions, like about if it's controversial, if it says like complementarian, egalitarian, stuff like that.
Yeah. It would not be read well by progressives,
Right.
or by egalitarians.
Right.
Not that he's out there swinging punches. He's just like, and this is a position. And then
Right.
tries to prove it and moves on. So, yeah.
But since we've talked about the book.
We're almost done another book.
Yeah.
This is it. This is the end of the First Samuel.
We're going to talk about what we have read.
Yes.
Yeah.
Saul downhill from here.
There it is. There it is.
Okay, so we're talking about 1 Samuel chapter 31, the finale of 1 Samuel, and extremely sad.
But before we do that, can we do the lovely segment?
But previously on Samuel.
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, we can. So previously what we talked about was chapter 29 and 30, which we talked about David's wives being captured and then David recovering those wives and defeating the Amalekites. And it's kind of awesome in what happens. So before that, we talked about the Philistines rejecting David from being able to join the fight against Saul because the rulers
They don't trust him.
did not agree with Achish. We can't trust him. He'll turn on us mid-battle.
Did they not say that he has killed tens of thousands? Yeah.
This guy can kill whoever he wants that's in front of him. We can't have him here. So David gets sent away. And when he goes back, he's to the town where he's from, Ziklag. His wives and all of his men's wives in the town have been taken and burned as a revenge from the Amalekites for what he did to them a few chapters earlier.
Yep.
And then he goes after them. So the town wants to kill David because he failed to protect them. He then goes after with his men to go save them. 200 of them stay back to guard the stuff.
They get too tired.
Yep, they get too tired, and the rest of them go and defeat, what was it, 3,000 men?
I
Yeah.
don't
and
know
only,
if it,
only 400 of them escape.
yeah, I don't think it says that how many there were to begin with. I think what it is there's a great multitude and then only 400 escape,
Yep.
which David only
nothing.
started with 600 minus 2 is 4. So he attacks with 4, a great force, and then only 400 escape his attack.
Yeah, and so they defeat them, and they...
And then they can't walk. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, they absolutely destroy this group, and they fight them for, what was it, 2 days?
Yeah, it's all of from dusk until
The evening of the next day. Yeah, so they're...
A whole day,
Yeah,
roughly.
battle on and off. There's a few men versus a lot of men, so they think they can take them. It goes on for a while.
Which does explain why it takes so long. Because think about it, a small band of soldiers attacks you. Oh, that took me off by surprise. Oh, we'll regroup and counterattack.
Yeah.
That didn't go
Eventually,
well.
we'll
That's fine.
break them.
And
Yeah.
David,
exactly.
like an absolute hero out of a storybook, gets all of his wives and all of their stuff back
And all of his men's wives and all of their stuff back.
Without losing.
without losing a single person.
Yeah.
Or item.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And takes all their stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he takes what they took from Israel when they're raid in there. And he's like, here's your stuff back.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
a bunch of mean people want to keep it from the rest of the people who didn't come with them, but
Yep.
he gives it to them.
And that leads us to the actual battle that he wasn't able to partake in.
Yep.
Because probably, God's sovereign hand was played so that he could go and save his wives and
Double providence.
Yeah. And Saul could have the end he has, which is
A sword.
yes.
Oh, you read ahead.
Shall I read a section?
Please.
Okay. 1 Samuel 31, the death of Saul. Now the Philistines were fighting against Israel, and the men of Israel fled before the Philistines and fell slain on Mount Gilboa. And the Philistines overtook Saul and his sons, and the Philistines struck down Jonathan and Abinadab and Malchishua, the sons of Saul. The battle pressed hard against Saul, and the archers found him, and he was badly wounded by the archers. Then Saul said to his armor bearer, "Draw your sword and thrust me through with it, lest these uncircumcised come and thrust me through and mistreat me." But his armor bearer would not. for he feared greatly. Therefore Saul took his own sword and fell upon it. And when his armor bearer saw what Saul was dead, he also fell upon his sword and died with him. Thus Saul died, and his 3 sons and his armor bearer and all his men on the same day together. And when the men of Israel who were on the other side of the valley and those beyond the Jordan saw that the men of Israel had fled and that Saul and his sons were dead, they abandoned their cities and fled, and the Philistines came and lived in them. So the first thing that I think I notice is that sucks, but also in the first 2 verses, the affirmation of Samuel's prophecy. You and all your sons will die this day.
Yep.
And it just sucks that Jonathan had to die.
It really, and sort of unceremoniously.
Yeah.
Well, kind of the depiction is, at least this is what's going on in my imagination during it.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be a weird one. You know, in Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the final battle, and they retreat into the rocks.
Yep.
Right. But then it's just a funnel for arrows. That's how I picture where, you know, Saul and his sons and his armor bearer, and I'm assuming some of his higher ups, although not Abner.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, they're just picked off. And then the other army on the other side just sees them getting slowly picked off. And it kind of depicts as though Saul remained alive while his sons were just, at least if you're going to go with this, with only the information that we have, as his sons are just picked off with arrows. At least that's, if you're going to go off of just the imagery that we have, that's kind of, that's where my imagination goes. And so it's just like, oh, that's horrible.
Yeah. And this is the Jonathan that has defeated the Philistines multiple times because God was with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah. And this is the Jonathan that has stood up for his father every step of the way. And then when he finally saw how horrible his dad was when he threw a spear at him, he still stuck with him. That's what loyalty gets you.
Well,
whoa, buddy.
Yeah.
No, that's what loyalty to someone who in the story has the point there that's being presented is that it's Saul's fault that happened.
It is Saul's fault. Yeah.
Because of his continual disobedience. When you continuously sin, like Saul did, what ends up, your sin affects the people around you. And Saul's sin had gone so far that when he was going to lose as king, because he's overseeing all these people, when he loses or is rejected, or the consequences of his sin comes, it affects all the people under him, which includes his army and his sons.
And it follows Eli,
Yeah.
the issue with Eli from chapter 1. Well, sorry, not chapter 1, chapter 2 and 3, I think it is.
Yes.
Eli, it's not just Eli who's going to die. His sons will not continue.
But there's something different going on with Eli, because it's his sons that are evil, and then the death of the father because of the sons.
Right.
But there's something that's inverted when you have Jonathan, an innocent son, by all accounts, dying because of the sin of the father.
I think it enforces the concept that's presented in the earlier chapters of the book, where the authority figure, if they go south, those who are underneath him and him are punished.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's playing with that biblical idea of like headship that gets played later on with Chronicles, with kings.
Yes.
When the king is evil, the people suffer, the nation goes bad. But also in the like with Adam, when Adam sins, all of humanity is sinful as head of humanity. Except
Depending
the point
on
still
your
is
martyrology.
Yeah, but except the point still is that Jonathan hadn't done anything as presented to be sinful. He's
very painted in a very favorable light.
Yeah.
I personally believe that Jonathan didn't deserve the death he got. However, as we'll see, spoilers, in the next few chapters, David does lament over Jonathan and Saul's death too.
Yeah.
Wait, is David one of the few characters in the Bible who doesn't have a negative aspect attributed to him?
David?
No, Jonathan.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
Jonathan, yeah.
Yeah.
If maybe the only one would be he's slow to realize his father's evil heart.
Yeah, a bit blind
Yeah.
to what his father's doing.
But as soon as he sees it, then he's
Yeah.
he
And
does
there
the
is
righteous thing.
there is the like, he doesn't actually do anything wrong. Like he breaks his father's rash, bad promise
Yeah.
out of naivety.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't know.
Mhm.
So,
the no one shall eat, and then he eats honey.
Oh yeah, that would be one negative aspect.
but he doesn't know,
But, like,
and
it's
God
not really
doesn't
his
hold
fault.
it against him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But but to so Samuel, this is the outcome of the first and the last prophecy that Samuel has to give, which
Yeah.
is you and your sons will die today.
and the fact that it's just like the first prophecy he ever gave.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, terrible.
The first prophecy and the last, which you had to be raised from the dead to give.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you've got and also it's the Philistines defeating the one who supposedly the Holy Spirit is where God resides and the king has the Spirit.
Yes.
Well, you're saying the Holy Spirit and the King is God residing within the King.
Well, no, he specifically isn't now.
Okay.
I think the way that if you were going to, let me see if I can articulate that a little differently, and you can tell me if that's what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
The Holy Spirit is the power of God acted upon in the positions that he sets forth in Israel, in the Old Testament, right? It's the power of God acted in the priesthood, power of God acting throughout the prophets. And it's understood as God working through those people.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the Spirit of God upon the kings is active protection.
It also wouldn't be too much different from him residing in the tabernacle or in the temple.
Yes.
In terms of presentation, the Spirit being present.
Well, no, to Caleb's point, the place I was going with was the Holy Spirit in the ark, and the Holy Spirit is in the king.
I don't know if they would have that articulation. Actually, hang on. Now I'm just getting biblical critical. I don't know.
Well, no. What I'm just bear with me is how God defends his people. Before he was fighting through the ark, but it was they misappropriately took it in their own hands. They said we can't lose if this is with us because God is with us in this fight.
Yeah, he is present.
With the king, Saul has continuously tried to be king, take that for himself, and in so doing, with the same prophecy, with the same battle with the Philistines, dies because he has misappropriately taken on that kingship, that role of defender, even though God has rejected him, even though God has rejected the use of the ark.
I don't think I agree with
I like the connection. I think as far as you can go is it's the glory of God has once again left Israel. I
Yes.
don't think you can expand it more to they thought they were manipulating God. He thought God was with him and he wasn't.
Yeah, nor I'm not totally convinced of also the Spirit of God being in the king in the same way that they would articulate the Spirit of God being in or with
Yes,
or by or on or whatever term.
It would be
whatever.
because it would be the Spirit came upon
Yes.
the king.
And so I don't.
But there's still a relationship with the Spirit and the king being the thing that defends Israel.
Shh. The Spirit and the King are the things that defends. Well,
The Spirit through the king
Uh,
is what defends Israel.
Because
Because that was his
I
command.
think.
I think I can agree in the extent that ancient Near Easterners would believe that they're if they won a battle, that means their God is with them. And so for the Spirit of God to be in the king, their God is with the king wherever they go. And so if they have success, it's because of that God.
The better term would be with,
Yes.
not in, not You can say on, that's a biblical term
Yes.
for it. But I think with would be better suited to articulate how the Spirit of God can leave
Yep.
and come upon people by anointing, right?
Yep.
Sure.
Because when you use term like we
Yes.
often just import New Testament.
That's fair.
Indwelling of the Spirit.
Exactly.
Right.
The point I'm making is that there's a connection between the Spirit being on the king, and that is how God defends his people, because that was the command to the king. You must defend my people from the enemies outside the gates.
Mhm.
That was Saul's original command. God has now rejected him as king, but he's still playing that role.
Yeah, I don't know if that
Because-
connection there to the
And because now God has rejected because now the ark, the one who the Spirit is with, is now in enemy territory, like
With
in
the
the other
Philistine.
prophecy, like in the other battle. The ark was brought into the Philistine nations, because right now David is with the Philistines.
It's just that's not as deliberate.
I don't know if I
That's
go
the
that far.
problem. I
The
like it.
prophecy's the same. The defeat is the same to the same people.
Is the returning of the glory of God. Now, wait a second. This ties into me saying that David being in the Philistine territory parallels
Yeah.
the ark being gone. Okay, I already agree with Josh. We just made the argument from
I
different
guess
sides.
I don't know.
I am less skeptical because I
then-
don't see it. I don't see it as the explicit part in the text as much. I'd have to research
in this
more.
passage, I would say
even
you're
still,
right.
even still, I think the pattern is more to do with when you disobey God, when your people, your leaders go south, God's Spirit is not with you to fight your battles. I don't know if
Correct.
I don't know if the articulation of that it is more detailed in more specific pieces. I don't know if you can break that articulation to the level that you are. That's all I'm saying. And you might be right.
Yeah.
It might just be I'm not
Because
following
in
it
the
well.
next book, the David returns to Israel
Yes.
the same way that the ark then returns
Well,
to Israel.
Not in the same way,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, because right now he's in Philistine territory.
But
Yeah.
it's still this idea of the anointed
Yeah.
returns.
Yeah, the one, the
But
thing that which God chooses.
Well,
I wouldn't call the ark anointed, though. That's the problem.
It is anointed.
but-
I agree with your first sentiment of like the Spirit of God being on his chosen is what gives them it is like a symbol of them succeeding to an extent. They Saul succeeds because the Spirit of God's on him. It's taken from him, given to David, whatever. But Israel doesn't have success.
Yeah.
Also, the whole, I don't know, I don't like turning our understanding of the Spirit of God into mechanistic articulation because he is personable, offendable,
Yeah,
right?
of
All
course.
that kind of stuff. Now you could say that, well, Caleb, you're the one who's importing New Testament stuff into the Old Testament. Fair enough. I'm going to do it anyway. But I don't know. I think even behind all what you can see is the certain, let's say, mechanistic understanding regarding covenant positions ascribed to by God, like prophet and priest and king. I think our understanding of even in the mechanistic, let's say, foreground, we should understand that there's a personable background.
Yeah. No, and the personal end I would add to that is God coming into Samuel was the defender of God's people. He fought their battles for them. And so when Israel continuously sins, the priest is confirmed by Samuel, you and your sons will die. They go into battle, they die, and the glory of God, the glory of God leaves, and the ark, the way in which God would go into battle before his men, before his nation,
Which is not normal.
is lost because he rejects them. Then then God says to Samuel, to Saul, he says, the people have rejected me as king over them. You will now be king. You must do what I did.
I don't know if the presence of God in the ark should be so closely articulated to the Spirit of God with certain leaders, or let's say offices.
Mm-hmm.
Although there is a close association, so I mean,
yeah,
fair enough. We've talked about this for a long time. Sorry, guys.
No, it's okay. Yeah,
I like it. I'm still on Josh's side a little bit because I like the synergy of the beginning of the book and the end of the book, having not only similar themes but almost like tying it all together.
But doesn't Samuel not end here? It's just we chop it here.
Yes.
yeah.
There's still
Which
like
is
old era and new
which
era,
is
but
where
yeah,
the-
they are.
There's like in the original editing, it wouldn't be here.
No.
So,
Although there are things that are wrapped up from the beginning here.
well, I mean, with the death of Saul, it's
Yeah.
certain things have to get wrapped up.
What I
There's a
would,
reason
what I
it's
would
cut
add
here,
was in the first few
Season
chapters
one.
of, well, and that's what I would add is in the first few chapters of 2 Samuel is David returning and the glory of God returning to Israel.
Well, I think the glory of God returning to Israel is the ark coming into Jerusalem.
Yes.
yeah.
Like if you're going to draw when does the glory of God return via the ark,
Yeah.
it's not with you get the point.
Yeah. Okay. I get that.
Was there anything more we wanted to say about the first half of chapter 31?
How about that the people all the way to past Jordan leave their cities?
Yeah.
Yep. And Philistia occupies them all.
Yeah. We're talking chunks of land.
Yep.
Get lost.
It's a lot.
Yeah. Well, there's here. What
What is it, like 40% of
fully-
Israel?
Well, here.
Wow. I don't know. I don't know if it's quite that much. It's a good
so
amount.
this is from Klein. Yeah, Klein, Word Biblical Commentary. The Philistines occupied their cities so that the end of Saul's kingship, so that at the end of Saul's kingship, the military superiority of the Philistines was about what it was at the beginning. The Philistines now controlled the plain of Jezreel and the region along the Jordan, although the central country to the south still seems to be in Israelite control. This doesn't appear to be long lasting, though, in any way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
David's about to take it all back.
I find the way that Saul dies also to be fascinating. So a lot of commentators I've seen, because he dies from killing himself, which, as far as I'm aware, is like one of like 3 or 4 times that the Bible mentions that happening. But the reason he doesn't is because his armor bearer refuses, as many commentators have pointed out, although I don't know how accurate of a connection it is. They refuse to raise a sword against the Lord's anointed. It's weird. More than one commentator I read had drawn that connection. So what do you guys think? Is it because he was the Lord's anointed that the armor bearer would not strike him down?
It's a pattern of thought, although not explicitly stated in the text.
And it's not impossible for him, that armor bearer, to have been around the 2 times when David refused to kill him for that reason.
That's true.
Yep. Yeah.
When he had every opportunity.
That's very true. Very true.
That being said,
Could be a new armor bearer.
yeah, the name, the reason listed in the text is for he feared greatly.
Yes.
And it could simply be more fear, shock, battle, fatigue.
Yeah.
But
And
he
just-
would know if you returned and said, "I put the king out of his misery."
Yeah.
He would be killed.
Well, I
Doesn't
think-
that happen later on?
It could,
Yes.
yeah.
David does.
So he was right.
Season
Anyways,
2. But I think to a certain degree, it's like accepting that you're going to die because you're going to kill the king, and then you can't tell anyone you killed the king, so you have to kill yourself after, or either step into enemy fire and die that way, or something, right?
Well, even the enemy would be like, wait, you killed your own king? You can't be trusted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kill him.
So I think there's a certain amount of just accepting the ultimate, this is it, if you kill your king. And that's one of the reasons probably why when he sees his king kill himself, and he's like, oh man,
Yeah.
I think that the argument that he was afraid of how people would perceive him is also pretty strong because the armor bearer kills himself too.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not that's because of the honor of his king does it, so he must do it, or if it's he fears how people would perceive him. Either way, I think that that's an argument.
Mm-hmm. The raising a hand against the Lord's anointed, it's not like you couldn't read it there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not explicitly said in the text. So
it is interesting that this is the end. Well, we'll get into it a little bit. This is the end of the major character of this story.
Mm-hmm.
David is also a major character, but I would say Saul is probably the major character of 1 Samuel specifically.
Yeah. This is the death of the first king.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It's not great.
Yeah, we've all talked about this. It just sucks because of how he had it and then he didn't. He just
Yeah, but I'm not
He's got
as sympathetic towards him as you guys are.
yeah.
So
He got what he deserved. No,
we haven't read.
Just
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
sorry.
Have we read to the end of the chapter yet or no?
Not yet.
No,
Do
not
you want me to finish?
all
reading the
sinners
chapter?
do,
Yeah.
or Jesus.
Yes, all sinners do deserve their death.
Okay, well, wild thing to say.
Maybe read from 8 to 10.
Yes. The next day, when the Philistines came to strip the slain, they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen on Mount Gilboa. So they cut off his head and stripped off his armor and sent messengers throughout the land of the Philistines to carry the good news to the house of their idols and to the people. They put his armor in the temple of Ashtaroth, and they fastened his body to the wall of Bethshan. But when the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead heard what the Philistines had done to Saul, all of the valiant men arose and went all night and took the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons from the walls of Bethshan. And they came to Jabesh and burned them there. And they took their bones and buried them under the tamarisk tree in Jabesh and fasted 7 days. Yeah. So
Okay, I should have commented on this maybe in the last passage, but I think it applies to this one as well. Saul comes into his kingship definitely not by his own hand. He leaves definitely by his own hand.
Yeah, it's to Josh and I made a note of this. I think it was an episode where it's just you and I. The passivity of Saul coming through his coming through his kingship.
Yeah.
And now reflecting backwards, now that we've read the whole passage, the whole section on Saul's life, it appears as though the only time that Saul is active is in sin.
yeah.
When he's passive is when it's good. His active moments of his life are not good. When he tries to step in, take control, be active, it doesn't go well. The good moments in his life is when he's being just passive and Lord's providence is taken care.
And like Joel said, the last moment of his life is him taking it into his own hands.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Yeah.
One of the things I find really interesting about what the Philistines do to Saul, parade him around, take his body, take his head. When Chronicles says that they take his head and they put it in the temple of Dagon, as well as the armor into the Ashtoreth temples. When in the ancient Near East, something I saw a lot of commentators talk about is kill a king is not just to defeat the leader militarily, but it's also a theological victory over their god. That by parading the corpse, you have shown that god was defeated in battle, at least to the Philistines.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons of displaying their body on the walls as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which
is more of a Canaanite thing.
Yeah.
From what I've read. But like we've said elsewhere, Philistines, if they are sea people, blah, 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 then they would all often adopt certain characteristics of the local culture where they landed.
Yeah. Also, there's parallels, sorta, to what happens to Goliath. I don't know if it's intentional or not, or more just a cultural thing of the time. But Saul's armor and stuff is taken into their temple. His head is taken to the temple of Dagon in Chronicles. Here it's not specifically mentioned, but he's beheaded.
Is it mentioned in Chronicles that it's to Dagon?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's Chronicles 10. First Chronicles 10. And he's beheaded, much like Goliath was beheaded, shown around, all that, which is an interesting. I don't want to say it's a reversal. I don't know if it's a thematic thing that's supposed to be, or more just a thing that happened at the time. What do you guys think? Is it theological, thematic?
There's something with Dagon and the hands and the head being cut off in the statues when the ark is put
Right.
in. But I think it's more just a cultural
I think so too.
thing, right?
As the person who just went on a long discussion about how I think there's parallels between the two stories, I'm going to come to the defense of Caleb on this one. And say I think it's just a cultural thing.
Even if it's not, like, even if it is just a cultural thing, there is a weird poetic justice to him dying in the manner that his enemies that he was told to defeat their enemies. Right? He was told to clean out the Canaanites. Didn't do it. Didn't finish the job. Like so many before him. And then he dies
Specifically the Amalekites.
Where he's kind of his nemesis. And he dies a distinctly Canaanite death.
Do they take his hands?
No.
Okay.
No,
because I was going to say that
just his head.
that would be interesting if the note there is that his head and hands are cut off.
And replace the temple in the temple of Dagon?
Then it would be.
No. Then the idea would go is then you should know that it's because the Lord rejected him, and that
Right.
it is in the same way that it was the reason that it was God who cut off the hands and the head of Dagon.
Yeah.
That it was God's rejection of Saul that cut off his hands.
It would be that he let Saul be killed in the way that Dagon, and I don't think it's Dagon actually. I think it's a different god in their pantheon, but killed in the manner in which a god in the Canaanite pantheon kills their foes. In other words, God threw Saul to them. Now, it's not really because his hands aren't cut off, and it's not really a thing that's going on there. I don't really know if that really is at play. Also, the term Ashtaroth in this it's listed a couple times in Judges and in other places in Samuel. Normally in the context of just like generic Baals,
Right.
Like
A bunch of trees.
no, just like generic idolatrous worship of
a general
false gods.
sect of it. Yeah.
And so it's likely that it's in reference to multitude of
It's a pantheon of some kind.
yeah.
One thing I want to talk about I find interesting, but I want to see how you guys disagree with it. Is I think, I'm not sure, and this is largely speculation, although some authors have talked about it a little bit that I've seen, is that this is sort of the author of whoever wrote Samuel is also putting forward the idea that because of Saul's head being paraded around, it's the defeat of Saul and also the defeat of the nation of Israel, that this is specifically trying to show that Israel has been defeated with the people leaving the different cities and stuff like that. This is to show that Israel itself cannot sustain itself. When Saul dies, a large section of Israel is forced to abandon their homes. The people, like the nation that chose their king, was defeated by a nation that they're supposed to have victory over and stuff like that. I think that this is supposed to show the defeat of Israelite thinking.
Well, I think it's supposed to defeat to a certain degree.
By God.
The I don't know about defeat. I would say abandonment to a certain degree, maybe.
Right. I'm just drawing in what Samuel said at Saul's coronation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like you will be defeated, right? Or judged. if we're going to use other terminology from other Old Testament books. But I think the concept is that with the destruction of not just Saul, but Saul and his sons, there's a wiping the slate of the that current grouping of the state of Israel at that time, the state of the Jewish tribe of the, let's say the nobility. That's the word I'm trying to find there.
To be replaced with the one that God wants.
Mm-hmm. It is not Saul's house. That is the forever kingship of Israel.
We have the stuff with Ishbosheth coming up, but that's different. So
well, it's that I think is the reminder that it's Saul's house is not completely undone.
No.
That there is still there.
Well, he doesn't exist in a vacuum for sure.
Yes. You also have Saul's son Ishbaal, which what's his name? Abner plays, but
it's a pattern. Turns out, the house of Saul is a
but the people of the age who are trained in statecraft would have been those three sons that are listed in the death with Saul, which is not a great move to have all of them in one location in a battle, but whatever.
Yeah.
Well, this is also coming from a man who who's shown that he does not make good decisions. Mm-hmm. So,
especially since Saul knows that they're all going to die because Samuel told him so.
Yeah. Well, it's almost at that point, is he even trying?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, is he passive in his defeat? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, he's so distraught from the prophecy.
Yeah.
And then there's the line where he's like, okay, let's go. Let me get to it. If you got something more to say, please talk.
No, that's kind of my observation.
Here's ASMR Bible flipping here.
Yeah. I will not eat. So he arose from the earth and sat on the bed. Now the woman had fattened the calf and she put it before Saul. Then he rose and went away that night. No, that's it.
Yeah. No, is it Joyce Baldwin that does the Tyndale commentary? She makes a huge point of like, he's clearly moody. Like he's got, he is not operating with any level of wisdom. And that's kind of what's being portrayed there. It's like he's pulling out all the last stops. He's got the fattened calf. He's like, he's going out with a bang.
There is no last meals.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you can even say that that's why he tries to get his sword bearer to kill him, is because he knows the curse that is brought upon you if you commit suicide in the law.
Yeah.
Perhaps, yeah.
That like it's even in that last minute, he's trying to get the best of bad accounts.
Maybe. Or he could just step out and get shot by arrows.
Yes. That's fair.
So,
but unless he says he doesn't want to die to the
because that gives
to
him
the enemy
a sort of specific spiritual victory over him.
Not more than suicide. What I think his worry is the reason why, not the arrows, is what happens if the arrows don't kill him and they capture him half alive.
Well, that's what he says. They might do something to him. Yeah, he says they might mistreat me.
Yep.
Well, I mean, if they're trying to kill you, probably.
well,
yeah.
Yes.
To be fair, I did always take mistreat me as to be what happens to him anyways, is to parade his body around like it's a toy that they've claimed.
We see other points in scripture too in the ancient Near Eastern context. When they capture a king,
that's true.
They kill his sons in front of him. They gouge out his eyes, or they
cut off his thumbs and have him wander around the table.
Or decapitate him in front
he saw what happens when Samuel
that's why
took a king that he captured.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Man, today's episode's a little morbid, but I mean, like, fair enough.
It's some hard topics, to be honest with you. But
well, one of the things is worse than what they did with his head and did with his armor as well.
Mm-hmm. All upon the walls.
Yeah, but his body is taken down.
Yeah. Let's read that.
Did we not? Are we reading it again?
I think we just went to
No, we
I
did.
don't think we read it all.
We did.
Yeah. Oh, forgive me.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
You weren't paying attention.
Jabesh Gilead.
Yes,
Jabesh
the men.
Gilead. Is there a significance to that? I
Yeah.
feel like there was somewhere else that's Jabesh Gilead.
Chapter 11.
Yeah.
This is when Saul is coronated. He is sent to kill. I don't remember who. I think it's the Amalekites or the Philistines. In
It's
this region.
Nahash.
Yep.
It's when he fights Satan.
Nahash, the
Oh,
Ammonite,
yeah.
went and besieged Jabesh Gilead. This is his first
Yes, he
military
saves
victory.
these people
It's
from them.
when he fights the serpent in the wilderness.
Yeah.
And can we go over why it's the serpent? Josh, take us away. That's my favorite segment.
Hebrew man, go.
Nahash is the word for serpent in Hebrew. And so this guy's name is serpent,
Snake
literally.
Man.
In the same way that the serpent in the garden, Satan, is the serpent.
Nahash.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So
Call back.
Saul, the one filled with the one who's the spirit is upon,
Yep.
goes into the wilderness and fights the serpent.
Monkey sees pattern.
Wait, is that Jesus?
Yeah.
Messianic imagery.
Yeah. He's
That's-
proclaimed
Oh
king.
yeah.
And then he goes into the wilderness. Jesus is baptized, and then he goes into the wilderness and fights the serpent.
Anyway,
That's awesome.
the people of Jabesh Gilead, the ones who were saved by Saul in chapter 11, are the ones who do the last mercy for him. The one good act he did, really, in his life that was untainted.
He did a few others, but they were. It's always strongly implied that it was the spirit that was on him that
Yes.
empowered him to do so, and it was in those passive moments that we brought up earlier. That when he just gives himself to God to be used as the Lord's weapon, the Lord's defender, that he's good.
Yeah. When he does the one act, I think it's the only act that's untainted by talks of sin from him
Yeah.
in the book. But I could be wrong. It could also be his when he steals donkeys or whatever.
Yeah.
I do like the and we're gonna go back a little bit here, but the kind of name calling it Israel. That is, Saul was looking for, aimless donkeys and found the nation of Israel, right? Like it's like they were so wayward and they were put in their place by somebody who was just looking for livestock.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
What do you guys think that there's a significance that his bones are buried under the tamarack tree in Jabesh? Because we have traditionally associated high places of sacred trees with, let's say, unsanctioned or even syncretistic worship in Israel.
Yep. And there's also the connection with the patriarchs being buried underneath trees.
Mhm.
Specifically,
that's what I've seen. Yeah.
specifically Abraham, because Abraham is the first of the patriarchs that God chooses.
No, but he's buried in a grove.
He's buried in a grove. Yeah.
But normally our understanding in Samuel
Yeah.
of sacred trees, high places, those are normally very closely linked. If not
Yes.
sacred trees on high places is where you'd find them.
Yep.
That they're negative. Whereas,
Well, in Judges, you also see Deborah at a tamarisk tree.
I guess what I'm asking is, do you think that there's a negative note on where Saul is buried? His bones are buried.
I don't think so.
Okay.
The one commentator I read, I can't remember his name. I think it's Elfsheim or something like that.
Some German
Some
guy.
Austrian dude.
Mm.
But he puts, I can't remember the name of the book either, but I was reading on it, and he puts it in an interesting way that Saul's body was too dishonored to be buried the way it was, so they burned it, but not enough for it to be completely gone. And so burying the bones was the best they could do, because burial is how they put people away in Israel.
And
Put people away, yeah.
and if you destroy the bones in the culture of the time, it was to annihilate their soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so so they destroy his body enough so that they don't completely annihilate it.
Yeah. Nor is his dishonor continued to
Yeah.
be shown. Mainly the fact that, he doesn't have a head.
Yes.
Yeah. Which wouldn't have been buried, but that doesn't
Also,
matter.
you'd probably notice that from the lack of the bones, but regardless,
Yes.
it's not even funny.
Nope.
Sorry, guys.
It's okay. It's okay.
But in terms of whether or not that's a dishonor to be buried under a tree because of the syncretism, or
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
I don't know. I said, yeah, I guess the Bible, the book itself, doesn't seem to put any, from what I could see, obvious weight on that being a negative.
No.
It seems to be a fairly positive ending
Well, and
for a
it's
horrible thing that happened.
Yeah. It seems a little bit like, how much are you going to read backwards into the, ooh, I might get into hot water here. The way Yahwehism was done pre-temple versus post-temple, and the articulation of, legitimate places of worship and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
How are you going to read that development, and how are you going to read the, let's say, the ethical constraints, not the ethical, like the religious, the right worship constraints going backwards in the earlier stages of the development as well?
Right.
Like, are those higher places legitimate forms because they don't have a temple right now? Are they? Maybe. For Deborah, it seems that way.
She sits underneath the palm between Ramah and Bethel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how many of those are just places?
Yeah.
How many of them are actually sacred places?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the tamarisk tree would be a sacred place to some
I
degree.
agree.
Same.
But later on, they moved the body and bones of Saul, like in 2 Samuel 20 something. So why do they move it if the place is sacred?
Unless they're like, this is not a good place.
Unless now there's a place that's more sacred,
Yeah.
which they moved to a family tomb. So
Yeah.
that's probably why.
I don't know.
Because if you go with the rest of the Old Testament, the places of where the trees are, where Abraham meets at the tree of Moreh or Meribah, he's buried in a grove, were all places of blessing. They were all hills where God blessed Abraham. And then when he's buried there and his sons are buried there, it's a reminder of hope in Eden. But I think with Samuel, that's changed to, with Judges and the other books, as a reference to like these high places being religiously significant. But yeah.
But that's the end of 1 Samuel.
Yeah.
So
It's
sorry.
continue.
Carry on. No.
There is an interesting, because we mentioned Chronicles a little bit ago, chapter 10 being the one that talks about Saul. Saul is only talked about for one chapter in all of Chronicles, and that's chapter 10. He's also his line in chapter 9, the genealogy part, the boring part of Chronicles. But one of the things that one author I saw noted is that there are 3 times where the reason why it says at the bottom of chapter 10, the reason why he died was because of his unfaithfulness. It's the Hebrew word being ma'al. And in all of Chronicles, that is only used 3 times. That word's only used 3 times. One of which I think is in the genealogies. I could be wrong. One's with Saul, and one's at the exile at the end of 2 Chronicles. Saul, at being fittingly the end of this book, it starts the story of that book as a thematic capstone, or cap point, bookend, I should say. And whereas unfaithfulness to God is why he dies, and then the exile is because of their unfaithfulness to God. He serves in that as his legacy to some extent is his unfaithfulness as a thematic bookend.
You see that throughout Kings and they followed in the ways of Jeroboam, blah, blah, blah,
Yes.
blah, blah. And so there'll be phrases that are like, hey, this is what happened. I don't need to retell you it because it wasn't there.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I like it.
Yeah. And then sadly, David in the alternate is seen as the good king,
Prototypical good king.
the prototypical good king, and the one who like
He
in the
is,
messianic
Chronicles,
sense,
at least.
Okay.
because Josiah is referred to as being like David.
Sure.
They followed the ways of his father David.
Yeah.
Wouldn't toss around the word prototypical.
Yes, I would say the king that God chose
Sure.
there, because then it's
The best example.
Yeah, I think thematically in Chronicles and maybe Kings, it is used that way, especially
Yeah.
Chronicles.
Because then if you want to make that connection, if Saul is the symbol of unfaithfulness that leads to exile, God leaving or bringing the enemies in to judge.
Just remember, Jesus is the prototypical good king.
Well, yes, but the David then is the one that comes after that brings it back better in the same way that Israel
stays
falls away
faithful.
and then
Jesus comes back.
Jesus
and
comes
boom.
back.
Fair enough. Yeah. So now that we've gone through First Samuel, it's wild. I'm so happy that we can actually say as Second Saints we've gone through such a large book
Yeah.
as First
Yeah.
Samuel. What are some of your guys' highlights?
Highlights? Oh, there's a whole bunch. Like how you guys love Saul. He's your favorite.
No.
You weren't really listening, were you?
No.
I like the part where Jonathan's like, you shouldn't kill David. And he goes, I didn't like your mother. That was wild. Jonathan's a real one for that one.
Yeah.
I still like the Ark side quest.
Ark side. I preached on that,
Yeah.
since we went through that one. Used a bunch of the background on it. It was good.
I love Endor.
Yeah, I was going to say the Ark side quest and the Witch of Endor.
Yep.
Yeah.
Best parts.
Buck Wild.
The
Goliath's pretty up there too.
Oh, that's right. How could I forget?
Goliath was a good
The
episode.
coronation of Saul. There's so many.
Yeah. What I like is the repeated emphasis that what makes you a good king is that God is working through you.
Mm.
That throughout that book, the comparison between Samuel and Eli, Samuel's sons and Eli's sons, Saul and David, all that stuff is all everyone is sinning, but it's who God chooses and then those who respond to him.
There's also even David's active choices. He so often references like, bring the ephod.
Yeah.
You know, let me inquire of God. Let me pray about this. Whereas you don't see that with Saul.
He only does what God tells him to do.
Yeah. So even his, quote unquote.
Quote unquote.
But his active, like when he's passive, it often works out much like Saul.
Yeah.
But when many of his active things,
Yep.
he
messes up.
inquires of God though, and it goes well. Or he goes active, like he's going to go destroy what's his name, Nabal.
Yeah.
And then God steps in through Abigail and goes, "Hey, hold on, maybe don't do that." And he's like, "Oh man, you stopped me from sinning. That's probably good."
Want to get married?
Where when
But
Saul
his name's
is active,
Idiot, dude.
where when Saul is active and God sends him a warning like Samuel, saying, "What have you done? Why are you doing this? Don't do this." He's like, doing it. I'm going through with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But those are some of our highlights. Tell us what are your highlights in the comments.
There's one more.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
It's when he brings back all the spoils from war. And he goes, no, I killed them all. And then Samuel says, well, then what are all these animals doing?
Sheep doing? Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
That one is pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty solid.
Then what is this bleeding in my ears I hear?
Yeah.
Like
That's so
Caleb,
good.
like Caleb said, please let us know what your favorite part of Samuel was. If it's listening to sheep bleat for some reason, but apparently that's Joel's.
Well, you know, kind of a bleeding heart.
But I
It's just words, man.
I, as we've mentioned already a little bit, but also bears repeating. This is not technically the end of Samuel, the document that was 1st and 2nd Samuel together.
For sure.
This is, however, where they decided to cut off the book into 2, and there's a lot of reasons for that.
Scroll length is a big one.
Scroll length being a big one, and the fitting end of the first king of Israel. that opens up into the new chapter of David trying to be king, and it going very crazily.
Yeah, it's difficult.
It is.
I'm looking forward to when we do continue on our Samuel series.
Mhm.
I don't think we're going to jump into it right away.
No.
If you really want that to happen, let us know in the comments, and maybe we'll see.
Mhm.
But
Ooh, do we want to put it up to a poll?
no,
We're
you
go-
mentioned
we're
this
gonna do it.
before.
Oh, okay.
We're going to do it backwards, actually. We're going to do 2 Samuel backwards from the last chapter.
That would be
Oh,
interesting.
no, I'm going to have to learn
Like
English
a chiasm.
backwards.
It's written in Hebrew, Caleb. We're reading it backwards because Hebrew's right to left. Anyways,
Sheesh.
so Saul, tragic character, yay or nay?
No.
Yay.
I think he's tragic, but I
Tragic.
think he's tragic for his own corrupt nature. He's not tragic because of his life circumstance.
I think I go with what Chronicles says. He died because he was unfaithful, and that's his
Mhm.
fault.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's
For
like
sure.
tragedy. That's not.
No, I know.
Yeah, that's
I don't see him as much of a tragic figure as you do.
Okay.
interesting.
Mm.
Yeah, no, there's no love lost for
Just
Saul.
to be the contrarian.
Yeah. That's my job.
Yeah, no, it's a good reminder that, like, yeah, every time that I sin, or every time that I feel like I'm about to sin, I feel those same fears and like the pathetic failure to do what's right that Saul displays.
Mm.
And it's just the reminder that it's just like, if I didn't have God in my life, and I didn't respond in the way I do to him, that I try to, we all fail.
Mhm.
But it's a good reminder that that's where it goes.
Mhm.
Mhm.
If you keep going down that path.
Whereas David is the other way.
Still bad stuff happens, but God is with you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Who plays Saul in the Amazon original? I think it's that white-haired guy from Band of Brothers.
What?
Yeah. What's his name?
Buck?
Yeah.
What's
I was
his name?
thinking-
he's in the movie The Shift that just got released.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking
he plays Satan.
yeah. I was actually thinking
Oh,
Michael
shoot.
Fassbender would be a good, because he plays bad guys pretty well, but in the like,
Just give him a Magneto storyline. Yeah, dude.
He's also in Band of Brothers. But anyway,
Yes.
continue.
I was going Idris Elba, but
yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. So who do you
response
think
seems
the
no one
Queen,
agrees.
Queen of Sheba was?
I
then?
don't want to get into this.
Anyways,
What?
continue.
Never mind.
Me?
We'll talk about it after. Let's see. Who else? Who's David? Who's our lead man?
I mean, if it's released tomorrow, it's Michael Fassbender and then Tom
Nicolas
Holland.
Cage. Oh,
Nicolas Cage.
That's pretty awesome. And then young Samuel's played by that Duncan kid from Stranger Things.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty good.
Yep.
What else we got? Who's
Okay.
older Samuel? Who's middle-aged Samuel for when
Older
he's
That's
stuck?
gonna
Samuel,
be,
Danny DeVito.
no, it's gonna be Mike from.
That's awesome.
It's gotta be Mike from Breaking Bad.
Oh, that's pretty good actually.
That is good.
I can't remember his actual name.
I'm honestly not that much of like a film person, but I like the idea of what if you had The Chosen, but it's Saul's story instead.
I mean, I would prefer
That'd
if
be
it was like
awesome.
an HBO.
Yeah, like
Well,
a
they'd
yeah.
probably do it better.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones type deal.
Rings of Power, the Bible.
No.
HBO, you do the King series, the Three Kings, Saul, David, and Solomon.
Goliath is just like The Rock or something, right?
You just
Or
get
just
the mountain.
Shaq.
No, you just get the mountain from Game of Thrones to play him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because he's
Yeah.
already a giant in that world.
Yeah, because he's a giant in this world.
No,
Yeah.
he's 7'2".
Yeah, he's a Nephilim.
No.
Could be though. I'm with you, Kelton. Kelton.
That's me.
Colton.
He is big.
Andre the Giant. So
Andre the Giant. please.
We're going to have to get the
Do you
Witch
wanna
of
be
Endor to bring him back first so he can play the role.
he can. No. I
Yeah.
can't see that.
Pretty good.
Anyway,
There's some tech.
Goliath as himself.
Anyway, next year we are going to start our Amazon original series. So don't miss that.
Caleb will be playing David.
Why's Caleb David?
Colton will be playing Jonathan.
No,
Heck yeah.
Cole,
You
that's
will go down in history as very good friends.
Does that make Kim? Which one of us is Abner?
I'm sorry, Josh.
my
What?
dad's name's not Ner.
Oh, can I be
son of
Abner?
Ner.
You be Ner?
Yeah.
Solomon? Solomon? Saul?
We're gonna do a video,
Oh my gosh.
a movie of First Samuel, but we're gonna just remove Saul.
We play all the roles like some kind of weird Monty Python second-rate saints.
It's like the Life of Brian, but for Saul,
Yeah.
where we're playing all the people around the events.
we're calling it Better Call Saul. Not even changing the name. We're just ripping it right off.
Freaking Mike Ehrmantraut.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Mike Ehrmantraut. Is what yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway,
Joel doesn't want to end the podcast.
I don't know, I'm not going to.
You wanted to do a whole
I'm thinking-
episode.
what a fitting end
You
to
wanted to do
Saul.
a whole episode
I
on
think
the
it'd be
casting
We
of
could.
First Samuel.
Who's Brian Cranston going to play? We don't know. He's
Brian
in everything
Cranston.
now.
Ooh, Brian Cranston can play Abner.
he
You
can
think
play
so?
one of the other sons of
Yeah.
No, he plays one of the
Saul.
Philistine
The guy
kings.
who played
Why are we making it a bunch of white
Anyway.
dudes anyways? It's kind of wild.
the guy who played
How many times do you think Colton and I can say
the
anyway?
Riddler.
Anyway,
Anyway,
You guys are really trying to end the podcast. Josh and I are having a great conversation.
The guy
You could
who
have a
played
great conversation.
Riddler could play Doeg.
Jim
Saul's like,
Carrey?
Jim Carrey?
No, in the new Batman. No, in the new Batman.
Batman and Robin's a great movie. What are you talking about?
That's the newest Batman
Colton,
you
stop
see.
doing this to me.
Anyway,
Right?
I think we've been talking about the death of a man for too long, and we need something positive. But I think it's
We've
a
been-
fitting end to the first book of Samuel.
I mean, we've been talking about the death of Jesus for 2,000 years.
Yeah, but that one's a little happier.
Because he came back, dude.
You're
It
right.
was a big deal.
You're right. You're right.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
We're not even
We're
we're
not-
not
sure.
we're not there
Lori
yet.
and Sam, you were going through the Bible as written. No spoilers.
Okay, so Joel, normally we end the podcast in a certain way. How do we do that?
Well, usually we spiral into a completely unintelligible conversation.
Seeing how we have it done.
What's the next step?
No, I'm still there. Oh man, I'm coughing myself up. Okay, welcome to the Second Rate Saints podcast. No, goodbye to the Second Rate Saints podcast. Thank you for listening this far. If you would like to check out what we're doing, check us out at secondratesaints.com. If you'd like to donate to whatever this is, go to. Oh man. If you would like to donate to the future of Second Rate Saints, please go to buymeacoffee.com/secondраtesaints or click the link in our website. If you'd like to keep updated on our new projects and ideas that we have coming up, check out our Instagram and our Twitter. Yeah. Thanks for enduring and listening.
Joel, I love you.
We'd love to hear from you.
Send us your questions. It makes my day.
Yeah.
Every time it happens.
Like, why does Joel still get allowed
Send
to
us
end the
every
podcast?
Send us every theological question you have. We will discuss it.
Now that we've ended
Except
this-
that one.
Just end it.
It's all over.
Please.
Josh keeps calling me El Gringo, so I gotta steal all his gifts.
Ooh.
It's the Grinch.
I've never
in
been.
Spanish.
I've never been to Mexico, but that's the most racist thing I've ever heard.